For those of you that are tracking the sun's progression through the different gene keys, you'll know that we've just moved through and we're in the final day right now of the 54th gene key. So what does this mean? It means that in a sense the sun is like a projector shining these photons, these light particles and neutrinos and through this lens of the 54th gene key down into our collective. And it's really taking us on a collective and individual journey through certain themes. So in this case, we've just been moving through the 54th gene key. So we've been really inspired to look at, where do we have greed in our lives? Because this is the shadow frequency of the 54th gene key, greed. It's a sticky word that we're kind of collectively is not favored upon. And as such, I feel like we've kind of neglected to acknowledge where greed exists in our lives because of the shame and different things that hang around the word. So one of the places I like to start is to define what do these words even mean. So with every gene key we have a frequency band. Frequency band meaning that from the low fear frequencies we operate through greed is the shadow frequency of the 54th gene key. Now as we raise our perception of reality and the way we feel in the world, we begin to lift the frequency through which we shine our light, and we start moving into the gift frequency of aspiration. And when you begin to raise that frequency right up to that enlightened state, that kind of superpower that's kind of innate waiting in your DNA, we hit the highest frequencies of greed, which is ascension. And so a key point here is to really point out that the shadow frequencies are not something we want to get rid of, but rather to transform how we bring them into the world. And to acknowledge that the shadow frequencies actually play a service in our day-to-day lives. And so that then brings the question, what service could greed possibly give to our world? Well, when you're looking at the shadow frequencies, I always find it really helpful to think, okay, how would this shadow frequency have served me thousands of years ago, before we had all the technology and all the luxuries that we have in our modern day? Before we had communication, understanding, and even language, back in the caveman days, how would this shadow frequency have served humanity? And when I think of greed, first thing that dawns on me is that if I had this cave family and we're living in really hard times, the ice age is there's limited food supplies, and there's a family across the valley, and they're also struggling. Now, if I was not able to block out my compassion and drop into this fear-based frequency of greed and hoard everything we had for our own family and not share it at the cost of the other family, and instead I thought, oh no, look, we have to share, we have to give, even if it means we're not going to make it, then what would have happened back in those ice ages is all the food would have been shared and there wouldn't have been enough for everybody, and eventually the race would have died out. At least that's my theory. I like it. Now, so in that sense, greed was kind of a necessity way back in our primal days. The greed is the same function we have nowadays, that if you don't have enough food for your family, if you don't have shelter, if you don't have the transport, the communication mechanisms, if you're not feeling secure in your situation right now, then there's a good chance that the shadow frequency of greed is finding its way into everything you do. And that greed will mean that it corrupts a little bit how you do your service in the world. So even though you may have beautiful intentions of creating great community, great services to the world, to provide environments to help breakthroughs and mental health and saving the poor, etc. If that is coming through the frequency of greed, then it will come through in this form of, but I need this first, I need that, and I need this, and I need the money, and then I can give this. I need happiness, I need recognition, I want love, I want this. And it could be that I want the love and light that I deserve. I want this right now. And it can create this kind of almost like a teenager's kind of entitlement. And you see it a lot in the New Age communities, including myself, that I've been a great victim of this, where I felt I've got so much to offer, but first I need all of these things from the world so I can give. And I realized I was being greedy. I was being very greedy in needing these things for me, thinking that all these things were important and I wanted them now. And what I realized was that when I could shift that frequency and instead find the resources that I need, use that motivation of that shadow frequency of greed to go out and get the resources that I need to take care of me and my family, in whatever the situation is now, in whatever my opportunities are right now, not how they could be or should be or would be, then I can take care of the fear frequency. I can make sure there is enough. I can change my perspective maybe. Do I really need all those things? Maybe I do already have enough. And as I begin to change my frequency of how I perceive my position right now and realize, okay, I'm actually doing pretty good, then suddenly the texture of how I offer my service to the world changes. Suddenly it becomes the gift of aspiration. So aspiration, to breathe my gift into the world, not to force it, not to push it, not to take a square peg and push it into a round hole, but rather to breathe my essence into the current form of the world as it is, without demanding that the world changes before I do. And so the way I feel aspiration can really be a gift in my life and potentially in yours is through acknowledging the frameworks and systems as they are now, to look at what is the current situation without denial. What are my opportunities to bring my gift into the world without demanding that it needs to be in a certain way? And so then I'm able to drop in and feel, okay, maybe instead of being greedy and wanting it all my way, maybe I can walk into this world that I've been fighting against for so long and instead embrace it, to love it, to see the beauty in the mundane, to see the beauty in these structures and these forms, and just see how can I breathe, and like a breath that is a gas, how can my service mold itself into the current structures of the world and find its place rather than force its way. And that way, when I begin to find my service getting its hold in the world, it'll happen in a way that is grown naturally with a strong foundation and a strong base, beginning not with these seeds of fear, because if we begin with seeds of fear driving us, this greed driving us, there's not enough, we need more before, and I'm going to use this to get it, then those seeds of greed, those seeds of corruption will begin to grow along with the growth of the beauty and will need to be dealt with later, and they'll be bigger and more challenging later. So this 54th gene key, this shadow of greed, is really just saying, take care of your needs first. Make sure your own needs for love, your own needs for wealth, your own needs for prosperity, for food, for survival are taken care of. And then naturally, as you satisfy that greed, not the greed for things you don't need, but the greed for things that you do actually need as a human in this form, in this limited form. Once you can satisfy those needs, then you'll find naturally what breathes out of you is this incredible service. You'll begin to aspire to something more. You can begin to bring more spiritual growth into your world. But if we try to do the spiritual growth without taking care of our needs in the physical world, then what tends to happen is it's like a tomato tree that begins growing, but the tomato tree hasn't quite grown a strong root system, or hasn't grown a strong stem and trunk to support it, but it becomes impatient and wants the tomatoes. It wants to grow the fruit now. And if a tree tries to grow all of that fruit now, before it's allowed the time for it to have enough manure, enough nutrients, enough sunshine, enough rain to help it to grow strong enough to provide that fruit, no matter how well intentioned, oh, but I want to grow the fruit and the tomatoes so that I can feed the village and save the world. It doesn't matter how good the intention. If that tomato plant has not allowed that natural process of absorbing the nutrients, getting the strength and the sunlight, then if it does grow that abundance of tomatoes without that, it will fall over. It won't be able to withstand the pressure of the service, and it will collapse under the pressure and bring fear, bring challenge, bring suffering. And I feel like we've had that a lot in this kind of awakening community out there in the world in many ways. And as I say, I am the first one to put my hand up as one of the biggest culprits, where I've tried to grow the fruits way too fast, and every time I've fallen over and had to start again. And so I feel like we're really being called now to start this new year, shifting our perspective, instead of rushing to get the fruits of our service, to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves first, and our family and our loved ones. And from there, then grow in the service, grow in the spirituality, and share that. So where can you see you have been greedy in the world? Where have you been greedy in your life? And instead of feeling ashamed by it, see it as a game, see a playfulness in this. I've been greedy for love. I've been greedy for recognition. I've been greedy for support in the way I demand it. And I've been greedy in spirituality. I've been greedy for the light. I've been greedy for the awe experiences that I've tasted. I want more. And in doing so, it has taken me out of my balance, and I've lost my core stability. And so now I'm getting my feet anchored back in the ground, and I'm celebrating going out there to create the great, strong basis and foundation with a new patience, knowing that the fruit will come when it's ready. So may you aspire to be the fullest human that you came here to be. May you be honored with the experience through your life and through every day to breathe your service into the world, your essence, just by being you. So if this speaks to you and you feel it's something you'd like to know more about, and you're in Western Australia, then consider coming along this Sunday and checking out the Meet the Gene Keys workshop, where I'll take you through your own personal profile. I'll show you the art of contemplation and how to use these keys of awareness to unlock your higher potential and begin to thrive in the world. So if you can make it, I look forward to seeing you there. If not, get your free profile with the link at the end of this video, and do the Golden Path online program with Richard Rudd. It's a great mechanism to really doing this work. And I'll see you next week with the next contemplation.